When I was a human child, I dreamed of finding a lost treasure that would make me rich. It turns out doing such a thing is possible. There are dozens of lost treasures from history. Some recently lost, others disappeared centuries ago. Either way, find any of these treasures and you will be set for life. Japanese legend tells of a sword so sacred only certain people were allowed to see it. It legitimized an emperor's rule. Whoever wielded the sword could declare themselves Emperor of Japan, and so the sword was kept under close control by the Japanese imperial family. However, it's unclear where the sword is today. According to one version of the legend, it was taken from the imperial palace as some believed it was cursed. So the sword was taken to a temple and guarded by high-ranking Shinto priests. Still today, the priests claim to have the sword, but they refuse to show it to anyone, so most don't believe they actually have it. Another version tells it was lost at sea during a 12th century battle. According to it, every ruler of Japan has since lied about owning it to legitimize their power, and the sword remains at the bottom of the ocean, waiting to be found. In the late 19th century, war broke out in South Africa. It was between the British Empire and two small republics populated by an ethnic group called the Boers, the descendants of Dutch settlers. Britain wanted to absorb the republics into her empire, but under a man called Paul Kruger, the Boers resisted. It took two separate wars for Britain to convincingly defeat them, and only by forcing Boer citizens into concentration camps until their leaders surrendered. Which isn't great. The British wanted their territory for obvious reasons. Gold and diamonds could be found there in great abundance. The Boers had already discovered huge amounts of both. According to legend, Boer leader Paul Kruger hid great wealth at the end of the wars, to stop the British from finding it. It's said he buried millions of dollars in gold and diamonds somewhere in South Africa, which today could be worth $500 million. In 1905, a man claimed Kruger paid him to bury the treasure, but before revealing its location, he mysteriously disappeared. He was probably a crazy lying cracker, but many have since gone looking for the treasure. In 1216, the King of England lost his crown jewels in the Wash. That might sound like some kind of mad euphemism, but it's not. The Wash is a swampy bay on the east coast of England. In October 1216, King John was travelling England with a large army to suppress the many rebellions against him. Given the size of his army, he thought the crown jewels and a massive hoard of gold would be most secure travelling with them. They decided to cross over the Wash as a shortcut as the king was ill. He and his guards quickly rode across the Wash on horseback, while the carts containing the jewels were forced to travel more slowly. But weighed down by massive wealth, the carts sank into the swampy marshland and were lost forever, taking the crown jewels with them. And so the crown jewels remain lost today, somewhere in the Wash. The Ghent altarpiece is a massive work of art in Belgium. It's made up of 12 individual panels which are together considered one of the world's greatest treasures. But one of the panels was stolen in 1934 and hasn't been seen since. One night it disappeared and a note left in its place. The note read, "Taken from Germany by the Treaty of Versailles." It was a reference to the painting being taken from Germany at the end of World War II and given to Belgium. The Bishop of Ghent soon received a letter demanding 1 million francs for the panel. This was refused, but began a dialogue between the thief and Belgian government. After months of correspondence, the thief returned half of the panel, but remained anonymous. Then, on his deathbed, a man admitted to being the thief, but he would not reveal the location of the second half of the panel. Since his death, no sign of it has been found. Forrest Fenn is a wealthy American art dealer who sounds like a fictional character. He was a pilot turned archaeologist traveller who made a fortune selling art and famously buried a treasure chest. A while ago he announced that he had buried a bronze chest somewhere in the Rocky Mountains that contained over $1 million worth of gold. He published a poem containing 9 clues that will lead to the treasure's location. I will now read you that poem, because surely my subscribers can solve the clues and find the treasure. I believe in you. Well, some of you. Okay, it goes like this. As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret where, and hint of riches new and old. Begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down. Not far but too far to walk, put it below the home of Brown. From there it's no place for the meek, the end is ever drawing nigh. There will be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down your quest to cease. But tarry scant with marvel gaze, just take the chest and go in peace. So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answers I already know, I've done it tired and now I'm weak. So hear me all and listen good, your efforts will be worth the cold. If you are brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. When Russia was ruled as a monarchy, the royal family had a series of decorative eggs made. Each egg was different and contained some kind of surprise inside. In their day, the eggs were incredibly valuable, and surviving eggs are now priceless. They came to be known as Fabergé eggs, named after the noble family that created them, the House of Fabergé. They created 50 eggs for the imperial family, but during the Russian Revolution the Tsar's treasures were looted and fought over. 43 of the eggs survived the chaos and are now carefully looked after, but 7 are still lost. It's unknown if any of them actually exist now, but anyone who finds a lost Fabergé egg will instantly become wealthy. It's known that Joseph Stalin looted one and sold it to an English jewelry dealer, but it's unknown where that egg is today. In 1907, the Irish crown jewels were stolen from Dublin Castle. They were Ireland's most important gems, locked away and under constant guard by security and police. So it was a shock to Dublin Castle employees one morning to find the crown jewels missing, as if they had vanished in the night. There was no sign of who had taken them, and the investigation into it proved pointless. Over a century later, no one knows what happened to the crown jewels. One theory is they were taken by police officers guarding them and sold on the black market. An investigator was brought in from Scotland Yard. Rumour has it he identified the thief, but his report was suppressed by local police to protect their involvement. In 1885, a mysterious story was published in a pamphlet. It tells the story of Thomas Beale, an adventurer who discovered a wealth of gold in the Old West. He reburied the treasure for safekeeping, intending to recover it at a later date. He buried 2 wagons of treasure in Virginia that would today be worth $43 million. But Beale would never return for the treasure. He gave a box full of ciphers to an innkeeper and then disappeared. Just one of these cipher texts in the box have since been cracked. It tells that the treasure is somewhere in Virginia's Bedford County. Many have headed to the area to dig for the treasure, but none have found it. The box contained 2 other ciphertexts which were published, yet they still have not been deciphered. No one knows for sure, but it's thought cracking them will reveal the specific location of the treasure. Although I should say, there isn't much evidence Thomas Beale even existed. So the people who have dedicated their lives to finding his treasure, well, might have wasted their lives. Palmyra Atoll is a very remote Pacific island. Many ships have been wrecked on the coral reefs surrounding her. In 1816, a sailor called James Hines died in hospital. Before he died, he wrote about his exploits as a pirate. He wrote that his crew attacked a large Spanish ship earlier that year and stole a massive wealth of gold. But the next month they were wrecked on Palmyra Atoll, where they buried the treasure for safekeeping. They repaired the ship and all but 10 of them set sail again. 10 remained as the ship was too damaged for them also. For several months they lived on the island, feeding on what fruit they could find until a passing whaler spotted them and took them to America. James Hines was among them, but he was immediately taken to hospital where he wrote about the event and died soon after. If he was telling the truth, there might still be a wealth of gold hidden on Palmyra Atoll. In World War II, Imperial Japan stormed through Southeast Asia, conquering the Philippines, Indochina, Malaysia, Singapore and Indonesia. With all this new territory, they could do whatever they wanted, and did. I'm not going to list all the bad things they did because none of us have time for that, but many Japanese officers took as much war loot as possible from captured territory. In fact, the Japanese government had a secret policy of using war loot to fund further military campaigns. General Yamashita was given command of Japanese forces in the Philippines in 1944. Under his leadership, vast treasure was looted from banks, museums, and private collections, but no one today knows what happens to that loot. Legend tells that Yamashita ordered the loot be hidden within an underground complex to stop the Allies from reclaiming it. As he and his associates were executed after the war, no survivors knew where the loot was hidden, and so even today the treasure remains hidden somewhere in the Philippines.